Welcome to our deep dive into an intriguing theory. We're exploring the idea that the Roman Empire may have, played a key role in creating Christianity.
Yep. It's a theory that's bound to rattle some cages, right? I'm fascinated by the idea that Rome, particularly the Flavian emperors, might have engineered this whole religious landscape.
Absolutely. The central claim suggests that what we know as Christianity wasn't an organic offshoot of Jewish apocalyptic thought, but rather a sort of manufactured tool aimed at pacifying rebellious elements in society.
And that's where scholars like Joseph Atwill come into play. He boldly argues, in Caesar's Messiah, that the Gospels were essentially written by Roman elites as a form of wartime propaganda.
Right. He goes so far as to claim that Jesus is actually a literary composite, partly modeled on the Roman general Titus, kind of like saying, hey, it's like a mirror of the Flavian conquest of Jerusalem.
Yeah, that notion is wild. I mean, comparing key gospel events to, say, specific episodes from Josephus's account of the Jewish war really gives an alternative spin on history.
Exactly. For instance, there's the way Jesus predicts the destruction of the temple, paralleling how Titus's campaigns led to the temple's destruction in 70 CE. It's almost as if the narrative was, it's like intentionally designed to mirror those Roman events.
And then there's the curious case of the Gadarene swine scene, which some argue has a parallel in a battle near Gadara, described by Josephus. It's these parallels that to some suggest a deliberate Roman-fueled construction.
Yeah, and not just that. Critics see another uncanny parallel in the account of crucifixion. One narrative even mentions 3 crucifixions where, surprisingly, one of the men survives. It's almost like a reflection of how Roman propaganda might have, twisted events for a message.
Now, one of the toughest parts here is bridging that narrative to concrete historical intent. I mean, isn't it a stretch to claim that, the entire gospel narrative was a form of psychological warfare?
That's a valid point. While Atwill and others argue that it was a tool to convert potentially rebellious Messianic Jews into docile subjects, mainstream scholars like Bart Ehrman, for example, sharply reject that view.
Right. Ehrman even insists that there's no ancient evidence to show that the Romans, as a collective, purposely engineered Christianity. His argument is it's fanciful and doesn't hold up against textual and archaeological scrutiny.
Definitely. But then we have other voices too, scholars like James Valliant and Warren Fahey. In Creating Christ, How Roman Emperors Invented Christianity, suggest that the Flavian emperors, might have had a vested interest in promoting a version of Judaism that emphasized peace and obedience.
That idea is pretty intriguing. They argue that a Messiah preaching, render unto Caesar, and encouraging love for enemies made a lot of political sense from an imperial perspective.
Right, it's like the Roman approach to governance. If you're going to keep order, you promote a set of values that really reinforce authority and acceptance of suffering as a virtue. It's as if Rome was like rewriting religious doctrine to fit its own needs.
Yeah, and that's not all either. When you step back and look at it, even opponents of the theory concede that, once Christianity became legal under Roman rule, its spread and organization mimicked the structure of the empire itself.
Yes, exactly. The church's structure bore a resemblance to Roman administration, hierarchical, bureaucratic, and totally geared toward maintaining order.
But I do wonder if we might be overemphasizing the role of political manipulation here. I mean, can we really say Rome invented Christianity from the ground up, or is it more an instance of editing and shaping an existing tradition?
I think that's a fair critique. Even proponents of the theory often admit that Christianity may not have been entirely invented by Rome from scratch. It's more like Rome significantly influenced its evolution through strategic endorsement and careful editing.
Right. It's like a blend. Some elements very clearly Jewish in origin and others that appear to be refined to serve the political and social agendas of Roman elites.
Exactly, and that's where we see those typological parallels. Cases like the survival narrative in the crucifixion story or the prediction of the temple's destruction can be viewed as creative adaptations to suit a new political reality under Roman patronage.
And let's not forget the timeline. The crucial period of the 66-73 CE Jewish War, the destruction of the temple in 70 CE, and the subsequent Flavian rule, right? These events are tightly interwoven with the supposed composition of the Gospels between about 80-100 CE.
Right, the timeline dovetails suspiciously well with the argument. It's almost as if the Gospels were written to reflect, it's like a specific moment in history that, conveniently benefited the Flavian regime.
That's a neat, if controversial, way to look at it. But what about other scholars? I recall names like Robert Eisenman and Dominic Crossan who hint at some rhetorical shaping of early Christian narratives, but stop short of endorsing the full-blown Roman invention idea.
Right. Eisenman, for example, isn't saying that the Romans wrote the Gospels from scratch. Instead, he emphasizes the political manipulation seen in figures like Paul, who arguably redirected Jewish apocalypticism into a more Roman-friendly, subservient form.
And then there's Crossan, who points out the process of Romanization in the narrative itself, highlighting how a Galilean peasant's message transformed over time into a religion that, meshed with the empire's values of authority and order.
Exactly. It's like a gradual evolution. Sort of like rewriting a classic story to suit a new audience. It's like, tailoring a novel to reflect the tastes and needs of a powerful new readership.
Still, looking at all the compiled evidence, do you think the Roman Provenance Theory holds enough water? Or does it lean too heavily on imaginative interpretation of parallels?
I'd say it's compelling as a thought experiment, but the criticisms are equally compelling. Mainstream scholars, as we mentioned, argue that the theory lacks solid textual evidence and leans towards conspiratorial thinking.
That's a serious counterpoint. It reminds me of the adage, history is written by the winners. But even then, you need hard evidence to support such a sweeping claim.
Exactly. While the theory pushes us to re-examine the origins of our holy texts and consider whose interests they might ultimately serve, it still stands on contentious grounds.
And yet, the idea is undeniable in its allure, suggesting that a religion which preaches acceptance of suffering and obedience might have been the perfect tool for an empire eager to, keep dissent in check.
Right. It's like a masterstroke of political strategy, if you think about it. The idea that Rome could mold a religious narrative to promote peace, more like social control, is brilliantly bold.
But then we have the clear counterargument. While Rome definitely influenced Christianity, it perhaps didn't fully create it. The blend of indigenous Jewish traditions with imperial motifs is what makes this theory both fascinating and, controversial.
Absolutely. And it's important to note that even critics admit that once Christianity was legalized, its rapid spread and structured organization were very much in line with Roman administrative practices.
Yeah. So where does that leave us? It seems there's a middle ground. Rome didn't exactly invent Christianity, but it certainly, had a huge hand in shaping and promoting a version of it that suited its empire's needs.
Right on. Taking everything into account, we see a narrative where Rome is both a catalyst and a modifier. It highlights how history can be reinterpreted when the political and social benefits line up perfectly.
It really is a blend of historical facts and bold interpretation. And whether or not one fully accepts the Roman Provenance Theory, it undeniably compels us to ask deeper questions about the origins of our sacred texts and the motivations behind them.
Exactly. And that's what makes this discussion so engaging. It challenges us to dig beneath the surface, consider multiple narratives, and always question the status quo.
And that's our take on the theory. Even if the full picture remains debated, it's clear that the influence of Rome on early Christianity is a topic that continues to fascinate and challenge conventional wisdom.